Hi everyone, quick video to make a demo of the Obsidian starter vault for TTRPG. A week ago, for context, I made an article about how I was using Obsidian to capture all my notes, rule set, classes, everything related to Dungeon and Dragon, and that I wanted to find a way to be able to share those notes publicly with my players online. And I found a tool that is named Quartz, and basically Quartz allow you to publish your Obsidian notes online. It's really cool. And I basically ask you if you were interested to have like maybe a starter vault, which would be system agnostic for any TTRPG, and I received a couple of responses, so I decided to make that vault available to you. So one way you can easily find it is if you go to my website, which is solorpgstudio.com. You can go to the tools section, and here you can find the TTRPG starter Obsidian vault. Click here. You can either download it by clicking the download button, but if you're interested into its evolution, you can also visit the GitHub page. Let me close those tabs. And here you'll be able to see every commits and the code history. And basically, if you have a GitHub account, you can also open an issue or even create a PR if you want to participate in the evolution of this project. Okay, so we talked about that. Now I can just explain a little bit what you'll see when you download the files and you open it in Obsidian. So if you've never seen Obsidian before, this is how it looks. You have your main panel where we can add your notes. You have a left and right sidebar where you can navigate and find different kind of information. I wanted to quickly go over the structure. So at the top in this vault, I've created a admin folder with one file. It's the vault rules, and basically it's everything you want to see. It's basically the guidelines you want to have to your personal vault. So for example, I like to have all my folders and files written in lowercase, for example, but that is proper to me. You might not want it. So basically just like a quick files to remind yourself of your like style guide of your vault. If you don't need it, don't like it, you can simply delete it and it's fine. Never have to think about it ever again. Our archive folder is basically only used for file I don't think are necessary anymore. So I just like move them in the archive file. And after a while, if I didn't think about those notes, I simply delete it. So it's just in between deleting the notes forever. I'd rather be a little bit more prudent, and that way, when I do any search, I can also exclude the archive folder from any search result, which can be really useful. Okay, the attachment is basically a folder where I put all my images, so it declutters a little bit the space of the file directory. Bases, I'll showcase it in a moment, but basically, you can create a base file, and within the base file, you can add different views, where you can filter and sort your note based on specific criteria. Usually, you can leverage the front matter metadata you add to your notes, which is a really powerful tool. It's really nice UI, but we'll see that in a moment. Now for the notes, because it is a TTRPG note, I added some default folders that I think could be useful to get started. A campaign folder where you can add all your information about your current campaign you're running or past campaigns. A classes folder where you can add all your, all the information related to classes. If you played D&D, Pathfinder, Shadow Dark, all of those systems have like class base, and you can add your information there. Add a folder for lore, add a folder for magic item. Modules is what I use to add information for pre-published adventures. So if you buy like third-party or first-party adventure for whatever system, you can add the information within this folder. And then monster, rules, and spell. I think those are straightforward. And also you can rename those folders. You can add, you can delete. This is now your vault, so you can do whatever you want with it. In a template, this is also something really useful. This is basically how I'll show you. So for example, for class, you can see here a little script, and this is used by a plugin that is named Templater. And basically, you only need to care about this line here. And basically what it does is whenever you're going to create a new note based on this template, the note will be placed within the notes /classes folder. And I've created like demo files, so I can showcase that to you in a moment. But basically each templates have this same rule set here with a little script that will automatically add the notes based on the template in its corresponding folder, which is just really neat. So you don't have to drag and drop any files upon creation. On Obsidian, you have two views. You have a reading view. This is what we're currently seeing. But we also have an edit view. So you can toggle with a shortcut, or you can click this icon. So here I'm in edit view, and you can see there's a lot more information that just appeared on the screen. You can see there's a bunch of information here between like 3 dash or tick at the top and at the bottom. Those are front matter, YAML. Basically, they're just like metadata you can add to your file and that you don't see when you're reading your file. And also don't worry, this like templater script here won't appear in your notes when they'll be included in the corresponding folder. So this is only going to appear on the template itself. Now, here, for example, for the class, you can see there is a title, there's a class, there's primary ability, there's a hit point die, saving throw proficiency, skill proficiency, weapon proficiency, for example, simple or martial, armor training. The source is basically from where this material is coming from. So again, if I'm taking a Dungeons & Dragons reference, it could be the 2024 Player Handbook. The cover is used to add an image that will be able to display on a specific view in the bases, but that I'll show you later. And then at the bottom, you can see a base property with the classes value. And basically that will also be useful to sort and filter or note within bases views. But here I just wanted to add all those basically metadata built in by default on the templates to as placeholder. Of course, if you're not using the Vault for Dungeons & Dragons, those property may change. For example, I don't think you need all of that for Shadow Dark or something like that. So, okay, this is it. This is the structure, and basically you can add also other information for here I have some headings for the description and action, and everything in Obsidian is Markdown basically. So if you don't really know what Markdown is, I would look into it before. There's a ton of YouTube videos about Markdown and Obsidian, and it's really easy to find information. But on my site, I also added some resources about the Obsidian website, the Obsidian Discord server, the Obsidian subreddit. There's Obsidian forum and the Obsidian creator, Stephen Go, who has a really cool website that you can visit. But yeah, resources online are infinite regarding this tool. Back to our vault. So I wanted to show you this, but I also wanted to show you some of the settings. So on a vault, one thing you'll see is you can, there's plugin that you can enable or disable. There is the core plugin that are built in Obsidian, but there's also community plugin that you can install. And in the vaults, there's a couple that I really liked, so I added that to the default, but you can remove them or disable them if you don't need it. So one is just a UI basic skin that can add to Obsidian, which is what you're seeing now, which I really like. We have an Omni search, which is basically the default search of Obsidian on steroid. It's really powerful because you can toggle between if you want to search files or content within files with just an hotkey. So it really brings the best of both search mode within only one search mode. Really fun. The recent files is basically showing you here, as you can see, the latest file that has been opened. I find it useful, but maybe it's overkill for you, so you can forget that. The settings search is basically just adding this search input within the setting. By default, it's not there. It's really useful when you're remembering a setting, but you don't know where it is. Really, really interesting. And of course, the templater. This is the one we use to create our templates and a couple of things. So for every community plugins, you can have also settings for each of them, and I'll let you explore. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out on Substack. I'll be happy to answer that. But last thing I wanted to show you in the setting is one hotkey, and it's the Command O. Usually it's not the one. It's Command N. So by default it created new notes, but now I've mapped this setting to create a new note from template, and I'll show you now what it does. So when I press Command N, it now prompts me from which template I want to create a note, which is really cool. So for example, I do class, enter, the note is created, and I can start editing the note. So for example, I can write source server, and here it will be server again for the title. And then I can edit. I think a source server is maybe it is 6, if I remember correctly. And its primary ability, its charisma, and probably simple weapon and light armor. And it will be from the PHB 2024 and no cover for now. And I like the class. Now, because I've created the note with the hotkey from templater, the note is now, you guessed it, added here in the class folder, which is super cool, super neat. And you didn't have to add that manually. So now I'll show you how a note would look like in Obsidian. So here I've recreated whatever the notes I already have. So I just basically copy pasted it from my own vault. And I have all the information from the Barbarian. So you can see in Obsidian, you can have tables and different heading levels. You can have images. And now the thing that is really interesting is you can use Wiki links. And Wiki links basically helps you to reference other notes. Now they don't all work because I don't have that many notes, but I'll show you how it works on my own vaults in a moment. But now you can see also on the right sidebar, you have basically your table of content, and you can hover every headings, and will also give you the information in a popover, which is super cool. So this is how a note currently works, and if we edit, you can see all the metadata has been currently added. And this is how I want to now show you how the bases work. So here, when I click the bases, in the filter, we have different views. So when you click the filter, you can this is currently the table view. It's one of two views I have. And here in the filter, you can decide to filter your nodes in only this view, or you can add a filter that affects all the views within the class base file. So what I did is that I wanted to use the base property, and I want it to be is classes, because if you remember in the barbarian or in every class, the base value will always be classes. And this is because, of course, you can edit it, but by default, the template write that for you. So it's super neat. Okay, back to the base. So basically here I will only render or display the nodes that are that as the classes base. So basically the value is classes, the properties, the properties base. And I want to also only target the nodes that basically every node that is not in the template folder. So basically I'm excluding the nodes that as a template folder, because if I didn't do that, for example, if I remove it, see, I'm now having I'm basically displaying this file, which I don't need. It's only used as a template. Okay, back to the base, I'll reapply the filter, and you can apply a filter by clicking the add filter. There will be folder and is not, and then you see it's already pre-populating the option I have. So you don't have to remember by heart, but templates here. Now I'm gonna collapse this one so we can see a bit better. But here you can see there's a bunch of property at the top, and this is coming from here. And those properties are coming from the front matter YAML properties we have on the files. So if I open the barbarian file, all those I have access to, which is amazing. So for example, see I have the id point die. This is one of the property I can choose. I can toggle it on or off, and I can bring it back here. And you can reorder how you want to see them. And basically now, at a glance, you can imagine if you have like 40 different classes, it's really fun to just see at the same time. And you can also group when you're sorting. For example, here they're all together, but if I do class, they're not all between. So you can imagine that, at least in D&D, there's different subclasses. So if you would like to display also the subclasses, but all within the barbarian group and all within the cleric group, you can also do that. There's a lot of different options. So this is one of the views. So you have the table view. You can also add a list view, and it will basically just look like this. I'm not really using it that much, so there we go. I'm just gonna delete it now. But this is the card view, and this is really fun because for each of the classes, I have added a cover, and the cover of one of the images I added to my attachment. So how to target a specific image, you can simply do the double square bracket, and now you can see in the attachments I have a file that is named barbarian.webp. You can click it. Now it's added to that metadata, and let me go back to base, toggle the view to card view. Here you can see that in the card view I can select which property is assigned to the image property of the card view, and I chose cover because it is. But you can also make the cards bigger or smaller. You can also choose the aspect ratio, how you want to display the image. I don't remember what I had, but whatever. And see that when you are hovering a node, a popover disappear, and you can scroll within the node, which is super useful. Now, if I decide to go into the cleric I just wanted to showcase how wiki links work, but basically, I think I've created a spell. Yes, so I've created also a spell here. So where is it? Spells. So I've created a guidance spell. Let me open it in a new tab. So basically it has all the information from Dungeons & Dragons. You touch a willing creature and you choose a skill. Until the spell's end, that creature adds 1d4 to an ability checks using that chosen skill. And I created a small table to reflect some data, but there's also all the metadata information here. What is cool in Obsidian is when you use wiki links, and wiki links is this double bracket convention. You can wrap around a word those double square bracket, and if a note exists that is named like that, you'll be able to reference it. And here, for example, I'm over guidance, which is the guidance note I've created. Now I can simply see that without having to find it and open it. So for TTRPG, because they're so rules heavy system in general, this is super useful. So basically this is the demo, the small overview of the TTRPG Starter Vault. If you like it, let me know, but if you want more features or more things, if there's an issue or bug, you can open an issue like I showed you before on the GitHub repository. To find the repo is very easy. You can type in GitHub solo RPG studio, which is the account, and you should be able to, when you land on the account, you should be able to find the repository when you click here, and there you go. There it is. Now, after you add a lot of notes, it's where it's gonna become essentially really interesting. And let me show you how it works on my current Dungeons & Dragons setup. So I have about 2,000 notes, and here, for example, I've rewritten all the classes I have and subclasses. So you can see now I have the different subclasses for my barbarian and the bard and the cleric and the druid. How it looks on the card view, it's really fun because you can see at a glance on the class, and I've added this source so I can see when, for example, this one was from the new Forgotten Realms book. I can see information about that here. And I did the same for magic items. So now I can see if I'm looking for rare items or only items that require attunement or from a specific source, I can sort or filter by that. And I can also see information related to that magic items. I've done that for monsters as well. And monsters, it's a work in progress. I wanted to add all the images, but this, as you can imagine, takes a lot of time. So I'm doing it a little bit every week, but it's really fun to do. So all the monsters, and I can filter by CR, for example, and I can, or by AC or by HP, and yeah, the same thing for spells. It's just a lot of fun. I'm having as much fun when I'm building this than when I'm playing. So yeah, let me know what you think. I'll be happy to read your comments. Thank you so much. Cheers.